Welcome, class. Settle in, grab a seat. Today's explainer is taking us all the way back to 1913 to look at one of the absolute most mind-bending mysteries in the history of science. We're talking about why atoms don't just collapse on themselves. I mean, if you've ever wondered how the physical universe actually holds itself together, you're in exactly the right place. I want you to imagine for a second a miniature solar system, right? The nucleus acts kind of like the sun in the center, and these negatively charged electrons are zipping around it like tiny planets. But ask yourself this. It's a crucial question. If classical physics says those orbiting, charged electrons should be continuously radiating and losing energy, basically spiraling inward, why doesn't every single atom in the universe just instantly collapse? Why are we, and literally everything around us, totally stable? Well, here's our lesson plan for today. We're going to start with that mystery of the collapsing atom. Then we'll explore Bohr's quantum leap and his strict new rules, dive into some really elegant math, take a quick field trip to some real-world applications, and then finally, we'll discover why this scientific masterpiece is actually beautifully flawed. Okay, Section 1, the collapsing atom problem. Let's look at the actual crisis the scientific community was facing in the early 20th century. Physics was literally on the verge of a breakdown. Let's quickly trace the timeline here. We go all the way from the Greek philosopher Democritus guessing atoms existed over 2,000 years ago, up to John Dalton's early theories in 1803. And then things really start to accelerate. J.J. Thomson discovers the electron in 1897, and by 1911, Ernest Rutherford is doing his famous gold foil experiment, proving atoms are mostly empty space with this incredibly dense nucleus. The stage was perfectly set for someone to step up and fix Rutherford's one fatal flaw. And this right here brilliantly illustrates the difference between those two massive scientific figures. See, where Rutherford's model predicted that atoms should just self-destruct, and by the way, he couldn't explain why a simple element like hydrogen emitted very specific unique colors of light, Bohr's model steps in with the ultimate solution. By proposing fixed circular orbits, Bohr successfully solved both of those mysteries in one clean sweep. So, how exactly did he pull that off? Let's move right into Section 2, Bohr's quantum leap, and see how he built this absolute genius breakthrough. Bohr basically took Rutherford's foundational work and combined it with the newly emerging quantum theory from Max Planck to propose this idea of quantized energy. Now, this was a massive paradigm shift. It means electrons aren't just floating randomly anywhere around the nucleus. No, they are restricted to very specific permitted energy levels. They can't just have any arbitrary amount of energy. It is strictly fixed. To make this abstract quantum concept a bit more intuitive, think of an atom like a multi-story building. Or actually even better, think of it like a staircase. You can stand firmly on the first step or the second step, but you can never, ever hover halfway in between them. Electrons behave the exact same way. Let's walk through the steps of this model dynamically. So an electron naturally sits stably in its lowest energy level, what we call the ground state. Now, if it absorbs just the right amount of energy, it climbs the stairs, jumping up to an excited state. But excited states are inherently unstable, so it inevitably drops back down. And when it does that, it fires off a photon, just a tiny little packet of light. To make this radical new staircase model actually work mathematically and physically, Bohr had to lay down some absolute ground rules. And that brings us to Section 3, the rules of the atom. Bohr boldly laid down these specific postulates for the atom. He said electrons strictly move in fixed, circular paths. They mysteriously do not lose energy while orbiting in these safe zones, which we call stationary states. This was huge because it brilliantly bypassed classical physics altogether. And the golden rule? They only radiate electromagnetic energy when they change lanes, transitioning from one orbit to another. So the really crucial point here is that when an electron drops an energy level, the light it emits matches this exact mathematical equation. Delta E equals H times F. It beautifully links the energy difference between those two orbits to Planck's constant and the frequency of the light emitted. Essentially, it means the color of light we see is a direct fingerprint of the exact energy that the electron just lost. Now, as your physics teacher for this explainer, I simply cannot let you leave today without showing you the beautiful math behind this. Section 4, the math proving the model. See, Bohr wasn't just throwing out fun analogies, he had the hard numbers to back it up. He calculated the exact size of hydrogen's first, lowest energy electron orbit. It's a fundamental physical constant now, known as the Bohr radius. Just look at this incredibly tiny, precise measurement. 5.29 times 10 to the negative 11th meters. It totally grounded his theoretical model in hard, undeniable reality.
And check out the elegant pattern here, showing the energy of an electron across different shells for a hydrogen atom. As that principal quantum number, or n, increases, the energy changes. The negative sign is super important here. It basically indicates that the electron is bound to the nucleus by an electrostatic force. As you move outwards to higher orbits, literally climbing those quantum stairs, the energy becomes less negative, slowly approaching zero.
I know what you might be thinking right now. Why does all this invisible math matter to you and me? Well, let's take a quick field trip in Section 5 and look at some real-world applications. The quantum world is actually powering the technology you use every single day. Because electrons jump between these very specific quantized energy levels, we get the highly focused, intense light of lasers, used in everything from LASIK eye surgery to the barcode scanners at your local grocery store. It's the exact reason neon signs glow with such vibrant, distinct colors. And incredibly, because every element has a unique spectral fingerprint based on its own energy levels, astronomers can identify exactly what a distant star is made of, literally just by catching the light that traveled millions of light years to reach our telescopes.
How cool is that?
Okay, now for the classic teacher plot twist. We've reached our final section. Section 6, a beautifully flawed model. So, that brilliant model we just spent the last few minutes learning about, the one that won Niels Bohr the 1922 Nobel Prize in Physics, it's actually incomplete. Yeah, while it's an incredible educational tool that perfectly explains the hydrogen spectrum, it completely falls apart the second you try to apply it to atoms with multiple electrons. It also strictly treats electrons as tiny little particles, totally ignoring the modern reality that they also act like waves. On top of that, dictating that electrons travel in exact, perfectly fixed circular paths technically violates Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, because knowing both the exact position and momentum of an electron is physically impossible in quantum mechanics. So what you should really take away from this is that the Bohr model was a beautiful, entirely necessary framework. It gave us the foundational language of quantum mechanics and quantization, but it wasn't the final destination. It leaves us with a totally tantalizing question to ponder as we wrap up today. If they aren't just tiny planets spinning in predictable little circles, what on earth actually is an electron? Think about that for a bit. Class dismissed.